Hi everyone at the Salmast Heritage Association. It's Bert Vaux here in Cambridge University. Thanks for inviting me to participate in the Salmast Dialect project over the last 5 years and for asking me to give a report on my progress today. The good news is I finished an article on the dialect, and I've now also finished a draft of a book-length study of the dialect. And it was great fun working with all the speakers over the last 5 years in Los Angeles, and there's a long way to go in understanding how the dialects work. Today I wanted to give you a quick report on two things. First of all, the structure of the book that I've laid out, and secondly, an analysis of how Salmast dialect relates to classical Armenian that Sarkis asked me to carry out. In terms of the structure of the book, there is basically 100 pages of linguistic analysis of properties of the dialect, its pronunciation, how you form words in the language, its word order, and so on. And then I found about 20 texts in the Salmast dialect from the early 1870s by Rafi up to the present, to 2022. And then finally, I have a long glossary of several thousand words that is based on items collected by Hratia Ajaryan, the greatest Armenian linguist, back in 1919 and 1920 from the priest in Tabriz who was from Salmast. And that will serve as the basis of the glossary. As for the relationship of Salmast to classical Armenian, I've prepared a quick PowerPoint of just a few slides, and I'll report to you on it in a voiceover now. As I mentioned, the second part of my brief from Sarkis was that he would like to have a short overview for this report of how the Salmast dialect relates to Garabar or classical Armenian, and how that compares to how close Eastern and Western Armenian, the standard varieties, are. So what I did to address Sarkis's request was I took Gevorg Jahukyan's Introduction to Armenian Dialectology from 1972, which lists the properties of 124 different varieties of Armenian, including Salmast and Classical Armenian and Standard Western Armenian and Standard Eastern Armenian, for 100 different linguistic features, some involving pronunciation and some involving word formation. So, for example, feature number 3 in Jahukyan's book is, does the variety of Armenian you're looking at D-voice word initial voice stop? So does jur, for example, for water, come out as jur or jur, something like that? If your dialect does do that, it would get a plus for that particular feature. And what I then did was look at the table of pluses and minuses for Jahukyan's 100 features for 9 varieties of Armenian. Classical Armenian, Standard Western Armenian, Standard Eastern Armenian, and then 6 regional varieties: Istanbul, Yerevan, Kasab in Syria, Van in Turkey, Salmast in Iran, and Shushi in Karabakh. Now, I have a challenge for you. Which of these would you guess is closest to classical Armenian linguistically? So which do you think shares the most linguistic features with classical, and which do you think is the farthest away from classical Armenian? If you're interested in answering this question during your meeting, hit pause on the video now and have a discussion. And when you're ready with your answers, hit play again, and I will then resume talking. Okay, we're back. Let's see what the answer is. Classical Armenian, of course, has a value of 0 in terms of its linguistic distance from classical Armenian. It differs in 0 features from itself. The next closest dialect of Armenian is Standard Western Armenian, which differs in 29 features from classical. And then Standard Eastern differs in 30 features. Next is the Istanbul dialect, which, note, is not the same as Standard Western Armenian, which was actually made of a lot of different dialects in the Ottoman Empire, which differed in about 37 features from classical. The Van dialect came next, differing in about 47 features. Then the Yerevan dialect, which, note, is not the same as Standard Eastern Armenian. And then Kesab dialect differed in about 51, 52 features. Then Salmast differed in 59 features from Classical Armenian out of 100. And finally, Shushi and Karabakh differed in 61 features. So Salmast and Shushi were actually the most innovative varieties of Armenian out of the ones that we've looked at. How exactly is it that Salmast is so innovative with regard to Classical Armenian? Well, basically it possesses some of the most interesting innovations in the Armenian world. This includes Ajarian's law, which refers to the fronting of vowels after original voice stops. So, for example, we saw water, jur, coming out as jur with a front u, like in French. That's found in a number of dialects around the Salmast region. It developed vowel harmony, as we also find in Maraga and in Kesab and about 14 or 15 other varieties of Armenian out of the 500 plus varieties that we know about. It developed the S present, as we all know, like uzsm and so on. And it developed the past tense, as in uzsm I wanted, and so on. And actually, there are many, many more innovations, more than 50 of them, as we heard on the previous slide. So this, for a linguist, is actually one of the most interesting properties of the Salmast dialect, that it is so innovative relative to the other varieties of Armenian. So it's been a real pleasure to work on the dialect and discover all these differences, and I hope to continue working on it with all of you. Thank you.